choose kindness over selfishness,
Hmm.
or how do you choose giving your time for free to someone to help? How do you choose altruism? Giving up something that you love instead of just indulging into your hedonistic hedonistic pleasures, you know?
Hmm.
Do you understand what
I
I'm
understand
saying?
exactly what you're saying.
If you don't believe that there's a higher reason for you to do that, how do you cope with that? How do you perceive that?
My answer to that is by coping.
So
So
it
what
does.
I mean,
Okay, so
I mean, it's we're not born in a void, and I would be remiss if to say that the quote unquote that you said, you know, Judeo-Christian values have not influenced my being. I don't know how the because they have.
how you?
I was
Oh, they have.
born
They
I was
have. Okay,
born and
okay. I
raised
thought you're saying they haven't. Okay.
in a society that fostered those
Yeah, yeah.
values. Um, did not grow in other societies where
Mm-hmm.
the values might be slightly different, you know.
Or a lot
And that's
different.
why I was asking you in the very, very beginning, if you're saying that these values are better or more specific to this one culture,
No,
but if
I
they're
wasn't saying that. I was
sorry,
questioning it.
yeah, well, that was you putting up forth the
I
question,
was
like
questioning it.
if they're so universal, like all cultures should have come up with those, and is that the case? Right, it is. No, is it not? Because if it's not, then
Well, I
the
mean,
case for universality kind of
I can
falls.
see a difference. I mean, I don't. Go ahead. Go ahead.
But that was just to tie it up with the beginning.
Hmm.
So being aware of my own mortality tied in with with the like a little bit of hedonism, because I think it's
Hmm.
we live through our senses, and ultimately in a very deep level we try to get away from pain and walk toward pleasure. You
Okay.
add a layer of society, of what a layer of culture, to tell you what you can or cannot do, the rules of the engagement, of the rules of the social contract, as we kind of hear it being spoken towards today.
And you,
I feel like none of these parts um they dominate, but they all kind of work together.
but do you think that's purely cultural? That was the initial question. Like, see, the idea of right and wrong,
Yeah.
the perception of what is right and what is wrong, the idea of objective truth, or uh, um that there is an objective truth, there is a absolute truth, let's say, regardless of perceptions or the subjective points of views, or like the um, worldviews, different worldviews that people have, and different systems that people apply, or how they manifest themselves into society. Like, those sets of rules, do you think they emerged and they were established purely from a cultural um, standpoint of aspect, from a cultural background, or is there something that is more intrinsic to human existence that helped us shape the values that we live by in society, and helped us shape culture, that helped shape how we treat each other, or how we respect each other, how we talk to each other, how we behave in general. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, to answer that question depends on how basic and what kind of objective truths are we talking about. Like I feel like
Well, do you believe that there is an objective truth? Bottom line,
yes, I do believe that there is a objective truth.
for
That there
everything.
are not for everything. What do you mean everything?
Well, for well,
That's
for
very
everything, for like, well, I,
no.
I
There
guess when
are
we say
objective truths.
everything, we're
What
basically
does that mean? Everything.
existence, let's
Well,
say,
what is that?
or
I don't understand.
manifestation, or
What
I don't know.
I don't know what those words mean in this context. I understand that math is pretty absolute. One plus one equals two. One minus
Right.
one equals zero.
So see,
Right?
and that's one of the problems I see in society today. I feel like there is a
Math is a problem.
no, 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 not math, but the relativization of certain things that shouldn't be that shouldn't be subjective are very objective, and I feel like there is um, a tendency to tap into a more egocentric view of the world and say, well, that's your point of view. I see the world in a different way. Thus my truth and my reality is different than yours.
Hmm.
You know, so I think there's a danger to that
Sure.
in the aspect that we are not being able to communicate properly, because whatever you say, I can just rebound with the argument that, well, that's your point of view. That's the way you see the world. I don't see it that way. So, how do we kind of like find a common ground to that and understand why this sort of thinking thread, it's been more and more popular
Right.
within and especially amongst the young people, I would say.
Oh, the young people, you
Well,
know.
oh, they're
Oh,
young
sorry,
and
Grandpa.
stupid.
Um,
But
w-
anyway, do you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
I
I
feel
do. I
like
feel like
I was watching an interview sorry, it's one
no,
last
no,
thing,
it's fine.
where
It's fine.
literally every young person that the guy was interviewing, I don't remember exactly the subject, but every person was giving answers in it's such a subjective way. It's like, "Oh, well, it depends. Well, it depends." Of course, uh, a big part of that was the format of the interview, like, getting people on the streets. You never have a specific answer to that, also the individual, let's say, the individual limitations.
Oh,
Thank you. Sorry.
thank you.
Each individual limitation to that person that's giving the interview. So to a certain degree, that plays a big part in it. But every single person was given like this subjective answer, like, "Oh, it depends." And I remember
What kinds of questions
it
were
was a
they?
specific question, like, of something that was very objective. But
Well, it
the
depends.
point is, why do you think that this type of thinking is becoming more popular? And do you think that type of thinking um, comes from a predominant emotional place, that everything, because you don't rationalize very much, so everything is relative, everything is subjective
Hmm.
to to the individual's own experiences, or traumas, or whatever way of see the world. you know
Hmm.
I feel like the idea of absolute truth, and that's something that every human being has in common, it's kind of like fading away, and people don't have the commonality anymore, and that can generate a lot of you know conflict.
Well, I don't agree with your premise that is fading away because I don't agree that it's always existed. But I think we're talking about very different things. When I talk about objective truths, I can give examples of certain aspects of science and established, um, you know, established concepts and I wouldn't call them theories because if they're factual truths, then they're beyond the point of theory because you got a hypothesis
Right.
creates theories. Theories eventually become truths, which I'm not sure if there's a lot of them because a lot of the stuff is theories until something better is put forward. Um, but you have to ask like history science for that. But I think I'm not sure the question is like, what's the square root of 4? And people go, oh, well, it depends. I think we're talking about different types of topics, different types of subjects. And that's probably more in the social uh, sciences, I would say.
Right.
Right. So we're not talking about, what's the,
Social
how to
sciences.
calculate the acceleration of
Isn't
a
that a
moving.
paradox? Social
Well,
sciences.
you have to go to the definition of science
But
because I
anyways,
can Google right now if you want me to, very much. But I forget what the actual etymology of the word means. But I don't
okay.
think that might be. I don't think that's a conflict. But if it
Okay.
is, I am so sorry, everybody.